Massive fire at an American nightclub packed with young music fans.
The diver was asked to stand by the hole to make sure the string caught the cap.
當初是有什麼情形哈？一輛離家後4天，劉姓婦人的機車竟然出現。
The bodies of 3 of the 4 divers who were sucked into a 36-inch underwater crude oil.
96 dead at the latest count, 96, and 25 people still in a critical condition. This is what happened only a few yards behind me, exactly 18 hours ago.
February 20, 2003. A band called Great White decided to perform in a small rural town of West Warwick, Rhode Island. The footage on screen is a video recorded by the Environmental Safety Services to highlight the dangers of small venues. The band started playing their opening song, Desert Moon. A few seconds into the song, the band's road manager, Daniel Beachley, set off pyrotechnics that shot off angled sparks. At the time, the audience enjoyed the performance and believed the fire behind the band was part of the show. Little did they know, this performance would rapidly devolve into the 10th deadliest nightclub fire in history. This all started when the band's road manager set off pyrotechnics he claimed he was permitted to use. However, the club was nowhere near meeting proper fire codes. First, the club did not have a sprinkler system, and the stage walls were coated with 2 layers of acoustic foam, sprayed with a base of polyethylene foam. When ignited, these materials combined to create a large flame in seconds. This led to the frantic rush that ensued. In less than a minute, the entire stage was ablaze. Within seconds, a high-pitched fire alarm blared through the venue, causing the audience of 462 to panic. The club only had a maximum capacity of 404. Although there were 4 exits, the majority of the audience tried to leave through the main exit, resulting in a bottleneck that severely slowed everyone trying to escape. This delay caused even more panic, leading to a jam in the narrow hallway. The video escalates quickly. In the latter half, we can hear the screams of people trapped inside and smoke pouring from the windows. The sounds of people crying for help are truly disturbing. After 55 seconds of the fire starting, one of the band members effortlessly walked out of the building. Expecting the fire not to be severe, most band members believed the fire could be easily extinguished. So, some went back inside to retrieve their musical equipment. Unfortunately, they did not make it back out. Suddenly, there was a flash that swept through the room, and there were no more screams, no more alarms, just the crackling of wood.
Listen to me.
That night, 100 people lost their lives, with 230 suffering non-fatal injuries. Tragically, when the fire was finally extinguished, the firefighters found 40 bodies stacked on top of each other, some just a few feet from the exit. So, who was to blame? Despite having multiple exits, bouncers restricted people from escaping through the back door. The station's owners, Michael and Jeffrey Dudarian, were massively at fault for not enforcing proper fire codes and safety measures. The blame shifted as the band stated they were permitted to use the pyrotechnics, while the Dudarian brothers claimed otherwise. Either way, this was a horrible tragedy that claimed the lives of unknowing music fans.
色外套，再把女儿的粉红色外套脱掉丢在地上，接着赤脚抱起女儿步出11楼电梯。监视。
On the evening of January 20th, 2008, in Yuanlin, the Finance and Economics Building located in western Taiwan, a 37-year-old woman named Lu and her 4-year-old daughter had hurriedly made their way inside the building. The building manager would stop them before they made their ways to the elevator, as he did not recognize her as a building resident. So, he questioned her on why she was there. The woman had brushed him off and claimed they were only there to meet a friend. Afterwards, they rushed their way into the elevator and were completely unseen since that night. According to the manager, he felt a bad omen coming from them, and as the night continued, he had a growing suspicion. The following morning, the building manager realized that neither the woman nor her daughter had gone down yet. Out of curiosity, the manager had decided to check the CCTV cameras to see where the two had gone. This is what he saw. The CCTV footage shows the woman panicking to remove her and her daughter's jacket and hurriedly pressing the button to the 11th floor. Once the elevator reaches its desired floor, she removes both of her shoes and exits immediately. Afterwards, the two of them had been seen passing through the 11th floor hallway, making their way to the stairwell, which directly led to the roof of the building. After this security footage, the woman and her daughter had not been seen again. After seeing the footage, the manager had thought of the worst. He believed that the mother and her daughter had taken their own lives. Also, the removing of their shoes and coats were a common belief of a sign of suicide in Asian countries, as they don't want to track dirt into the afterlife. So, the manager had quickly called the police for a cleanup rather than a search, believing that they had committed suicide. However, when the police arrived, they searched the entire building and they found no evidence, no sign of the mother or daughter, not even a trace of blood, meaning that they couldn't have possibly taken their lives. So, the cleanup mission had quickly turned into an investigation. The police had completely sifted through the entirety of the footage and found nothing. They soon after realized that all the exits in the building were completely covered with CCTV cameras, so that means the two of them were still inside the building. Later, after the story was on the news, a man called the police. He claimed that he was the woman's husband. They had 4 children together and were separated for about a year. Their oldest daughter, who was in the 6th grade, told the police that her mother took their youngest daughter and told them that she was gonna stay in the relative's house for a couple of days. Years after the initial investigations, the building had often been searched again, and again. Nothing was found. They even searched the water tanks to see if it may have been the same as a similar case from around the world, the Elisa Lam case. But nothing. After years had gone by, that 11th floor had been left vacant. Some of the residents that moved out believed that there may have been supernatural things going on, which explains the supernatural disappearance. Also, investigations believed that she couldn't have exited through the building, as the cameras would have caught her. Also, this brings out the argument of why would she have entered the building, just to leave in the end. This case has very weird holes. Until this day, the mother and her daughter is yet to be found. Many speculations, but no concrete answer.
He came close to the open pool drain and was drawn. A great suction immediately occurred.
In the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago, February 25, 2022, 5 men were employed by the Paria Fuel Trading Company. They were tasked with repairing an inactive oil pipeline. This pipeline is insanely long. It goes around 1,200 feet deep under the water. Both of the ends of the pipe are at a 90-degree angle going back up to the surface. The group had been tasked with working in riser berth 6. Going up would lead to a hyperbaric chamber, which allowed the group to be able to use their equipment and breathe easily. In the video, you can see one of the divers entering the chamber, climbing inside, and starting to remove their scuba gear. The group of 5 divers are Faisal Kurban, Kazim Ali, Yusuf Henry, Rishi Nagasar, and Christopher Boudram. The initial task of the group was to remove an inflatable plug from inside that old tube that was used to prevent water from coming into contact with the oil. You can even see the process briefly shown in the video. However, as soon as this valve was opened, a very strong force pulled the divers and their equipment into the pipe. This had caught the entire group, but at least the group were fortunate enough to find an air pocket inside the pipe. This caught the group completely off guard. They were confused. They had no idea what happened, and they had no clue which side berth 6 or 5 was. Soon after, they all started calling names and were relieved that they were all alive and together. This happened so quickly. Even the video recording had gone from recording to pitch black, and we quickly start to hear the extent of the severity of the situation. So, the air pocket that they were luckily able to find themselves in was the reason they were in the situation in the first place. Releasing the plug had made such a huge change in the pressure that it pulled everything in the nearby vicinity, including the divers and their equipment inside the tube, in a matter of seconds. They had found themselves stuck in a very narrow tube that was filled with old and slippery oil. They knew the only way out would be trying to make their way back to berth 6, as berth 5 was way too far and there would be no way of making it there. The group also had no idea which side was going to berth 6, so they had a 50-50 chance of picking the correct one. So, they chose a direction and tried to slug their way into that direction. As you would expect, the group had multiple broken bones at this point.
Can everything alright with you? No. Any limb break? Your leg, alright. Five. Anything happen to you? Yeah. Apply? No way. Can anything happen to you? Yusuf, anything happen to you? Yeah, boy. What happened?
Making it even harder to traverse. At some point of the journey, the injuries had started to become severe. They had been taking too long. So, the group had decided that making it to berth 6 would be too difficult for some, as their injuries had finally started catching up to them. They agreed that the 2 people in front were to try and make it back to berth 6, and somehow try to find help. Christopher Boudram who was at that point in the best physical condition, knew he had to somehow lead this group into survival. The two in the front had come across a part of the tube that had been completely filled with water. Looking forward, they had no idea where the nearest air pocket was, or it could have just been completely filled with water for miles. After pushing forward, the pair had finally found an air pocket that they had been looking for. It had felt like years traversing their way through the sluggy pipe. At some point, they were able to find their scuba gear. This made it much easier for them to make their way through these long stretches of water. After a while, Faisal, who had come with Christopher, decided that he was unable to continue and even tried to make Christopher stop. But he kept going. He tried to make his way through and reach his destination, hopefully, before he ran out of oxygen. Then, he had bumped his head in the beginning of one of the birth stations. Christopher claimed that this was the most terrifying part, not knowing if this was bird 6 or bird 5. He started banging on the sides to get attention of the crew, and it worked. Christopher had been saved. He made it out alive. Upon Christopher being saved, there was one glaring issue that arose. Despite Paria having a rescue crew on scene, they came to the horrifying conclusion that it was too dangerous to send anyone back down to the tube, despite knowing that 4 of the divers were still down there. You might be wondering, since it's too dangerous to enter the pipe again, what could they do to help the 4 divers? Well, they had no plan in rescuing them. After 12 hours of waiting around, Paria began preparing death notices for all 4 of the workers. They had completely accepted that the divers have perished, even though you could hear the faint tapping on the tube, even a day prior to the rescue. This implies that the divers were very well still alive. So, those 4 divers were left to die in that pipe, slowly and painfully. The faint tapping had gone through night and day. The group's effort to make their way out had been completely ignored, and Christopher, being the sole survivor of this disturbing incident, even till this day, Christopher Boodram holds guilt to his fellow divers, believing it was his fault, when we all know Paria had completely failed them. So, that sums up everything I'll be talking about in this video. Honestly, I find this video really sad rather than disturbing. These cases had just been all very unfortunate. Well, if you made it this far, I'd like to thank you, the viewer, for taking the time out of your day to watch me. And since you're here, you might as well click that subscribe button and like this video. I'll be back with another video next week.